When I begged my mum for help after losing everything, she laughed like I was a joke, so I made sure her retirement plan vanished. Every last dollar. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. I never imagined I'd end up standing outside my mother's perfect house, holding a backpack with everything I had left. I was 28, jobless, and recently evicted. After escaping an abusive relationship, I had medical bills stacked so high I stopped opening the envelopes. I had nowhere else to go. My mother, Catherine Graves, was doing more than fine. She lived in a spotless Scottsdale mansion behind tall iron gates. At 60, she had retired early after building a successful real estate business. She wore pearls to lunch, posted yoga selfies, and called herself a minimalist, even though her closet was the size of a studio apartment. When she opened the door and saw me, she looked me up and down like I was dirt on her porch. "Hi, Mom," I said, trying not to cry. I need a little help. 2 months' rent. That's it. I'll figure everything else out." She blinked slowly, like I'd asked her for a kidney. Then she laughed, a sharp, cold laugh that cut straight through me. "I didn't raise a beggar," she said. Before I could say anything else, she shut the door in my face. I stood there frozen. My hands were shaking, my stomach twisted in knots. That laugh played over and over in my head. It wasn't just that she said no, it was that she enjoyed it, like watching me fall made her feel taller. I walked away, biting my lips so hard it almost bled. I made it 2 blocks before I sat down on the curb and cried. People passed by, not one of them stopping. In that moment, something inside me shifted. My mum thought I was weak. She thought I was nothing. She had always treated me like an inconvenience growing up. But this was a new level of cruelty. She wanted to pretend I didn't exist? Fine, but I wasn't going to disappear. If she saw me as a beggar, she was about to learn what it felt like to lose everything she thought made her untouchable. That night, I found a cheap motel using the last $38 in my bank account. I stared at the ceiling and made a promise to myself. She had built her little empire with lies and greed. I was going to burn it down, quietly, completely, and make sure she knew exactly who did it. Growing up, I lived in a beautiful house with tall ceilings, shiny marble floors, and a view of the mountains. From the outside, it looked like a dream, but inside, it was cold. Not just the air conditioning kind of cold, emotional cold, the kind that sits deep in your bones and never leaves. My mother, Catherine, never liked being a mum. She acted like it was some duty she got stuck with. She was always dressed up, busy with meetings or charity luncheons, and smiling for people who didn't matter. I don't remember her ever tucking me into bed. I don't even remember her hugging me. I was raised by nannies, schedules, and silence. Everything had a rule. No shoes on the carpet, no loud voices, no crying. If I broke the rules, I was punished, not with yelling, but with disappointment. That quiet, cold stare that made me feel like I didn't belong in my own house. Then Gavin was born. My younger brother changed everything, but not in a good way for me. Gavin got the warmth I had begged for. He was the perfect son, the one she poured her love and money into. He got the birthday parties, the praise, the private tutors. I got reminders to stay out of the way. By the time I was 16, I was already living like an adult. I worked part-time, paid for my own things, and didn't ask for help. I learned early that needing my mother only led to disappointment. At 20, I made one mistake. I fell for the wrong man. He was charming, older, and manipulative. When things turned abusive and I tried to escape, I asked Catherine for help. She told me I made my bed, and now I had to lie in it. That was the moment I stopped hoping she'd ever change. Years later, standing outside her house again, I realized something painful and clear. My mother didn't say no to helping me because she couldn't. She said no because she never wanted to. Not back then, not now, not ever. To her, love had conditions, and I never met them. But I wasn't going to keep chasing love that didn't exist. I was going to make sure she remembered what happens when you treat your own daughter like a stranger. Catherine always loved to brag about her simple life after retirement. She lived in a fancy gated community in Scottsdale, the kind with private security and golf carts cruising around like it was normal. She drove a shiny black BMW and sipped green juice on her patio, acting like she had downsized from a life of excess. "I'm living minimal now," she'd say, as if she was some kind of enlightened monk. But something didn't sit right with me. I had never questioned where her money came from until I had to. After she slammed the door in my face, I started thinking back. Her vacations to Europe, the designer clothes, the way she still sent Gavin large amounts of startup money, even though she claimed to be on a budget. It didn't add up. One day, while visiting Gavin's place under the excuse of catching up, I noticed something strange. A call came in on his speakerphone. The caller ID flashed, Alta Canyon Holdings. Gavin tried to silence it quickly, but it stuck in my head. That name. It sounded official. Too official. Later, I reached out to Jules, an old friend I used to work with at a small office job. She had gone on to become a legal assistant at a corporate firm and knew how to dig into financial documents. I told her about the name, about my mother's modest retirement, and how none of it made sense. Together we started digging. Public business registry, shell company, property record. It didn't take long before we found something buried deep in a list of holding companies registered in Nevada. Alta Canyon Holdings. It was tied to real estate acquisitions and fake consulting fees. And one name popped up repeatedly, Catherine Graves. Jules dug deeper, cross-referencing with older real estate news. That's when it hit. 15 years ago, there was a quiet buyout of several properties under a firm owned by my father. At the time, he was blamed for mismanaging funds before he passed. My mother had always told me he was the reason we lost part of our old wealth, but that wasn't the truth. The documents told a different story. Catherine had funneled money out of the business, money that was never hers to begin with, and created a fake consultant firm under his name. Then she sold off the company in pieces and kept the earnings hidden in offshore accounts, all under Alta Canyon. My mother didn't just abandon me emotionally. She destroyed my father's name and built her minimalist life on stolen money. I felt sick, angry, but also clear. This wasn't just about her refusing to help me. This was about lies, about betrayal so deep it shaped my entire life. She thought no one would ever look closely. She was wrong. I told Gavin I just needed a break, a place to crash for a few days while I got my life together. He didn't ask many questions. Gavin never did. He had always been the golden child, too used to being handed things to notice much beyond his own little world. While he went off to meetings, I waited. Catherine had gone to Palm Springs for one of her wellness retreats. Her house was empty. The alarm system was off. I knew because she never bothered resetting it when she was just popping out of town. I let myself in with the spare key hidden in the flower pot. My hands trembled, not from fear, but from rage and adrenaline. I wasn't stealing. I was uncovering. I went straight to her office, the one with locked drawers and staged bookshelves. Behind the bottom shelf I found a hidden panel. Inside was a fireproof cabinet, locked of course, but I had come prepared. With Jules's guidance and a basic lockpick set, it clicked open after a tense few minutes. Inside were folders stacked with tax returns, property contracts, and offshore account summaries, all under names I didn't recognize. And then there it was, a small black USB labeled Alta Master. I slipped it into my laptop right then and there. What I saw made my stomach twist. Detailed transfers, a fake consulting firm registered under my father's name. Long after his death, funds wired into accounts in the Cayman Islands, the Bahamas. Huge sums, moved monthly, hidden under layers of shell companies. It all made sense now. Catherine didn't just lie about my dad being irresponsible. She had ruined his name, painted him as a financial failure to cover what she'd done. She had stolen everything from him and made sure no one could ever trace it back, except I just had. Our mansion, the cars, the vacations, all funded by money she took while blaming him for the fallout. My entire childhood was built on betrayal, the cold stares, the lack of affection. It wasn't just neglect, it was guilt. She looked at me every day and saw the man she stole from. Now, I wasn't just hurt, I was ready, and I was done being silent. Elena didn't sleep the night after unlocking the truth on Catherine's USB. Every number she read, every hidden file, felt like a betrayal that reached beyond her father's grave. She knew she couldn't take this to the police. Not yet. Catherine was too protected, too careful. Elena needed help. Not just any help. Someone who could fight fire with fire. She reached out to Devon Miller, a quiet, sharp cybersecurity analyst she had worked with briefly during her short stint at a data compliance firm years ago. He still owed her a favor from a time she'd covered for him when he nearly lost a client. It was time to cash that in. They met at a coffee shop 2 towns over, away from prying eyes. Devon listened as Elena laid it all out. Alta Canyon Holding, the fake consultant firm, the offshore accounts. When she told him her plan, he froze. Elena, that's major federal stuff. You're talking about fraud. impersonation, system access. This is felony territory. She stared at him, calm but cold. So was lying to the IRS. So was framing my father. She started this. I'm just finishing it. Devon hesitated, then nodded slowly. Okay, but if we do this, we do it right. They got to work. Devon created a virtual ID to mimic the consultant identity Catherine used. Elena drafted a believable notice from a fictional third-party compliance auditor, claiming they had flagged inconsistencies in Alta's asset holding and required an urgent freeze and audit of all linked accounts. It wasn't just a scare tactic. Devon planted fake traces of money laundering flags that would force automatic security protocols in the holding system. Any attempt Catherine made to access the funds would trigger verification checks, ones only Devon could answer correctly. While Devon handled the digital trails, Elena wrote legal-sounding letters on forged letterheads and rerouted any responses to a secure server they controlled. It was all smoke and mirrors, but to a system trained to obey patterns and flags, it looked real. Within days, the first block hit. Catherine's quarterly transfer failed. She tried again from a different device. Nothing. She called the number listed on the fake audit letter. It went to a voicemail Devon had programmed to sound like a tired government worker citing high case volumes. Elena watched it all happen from her laptop, heart pounding. This wasn't revenge anymore. This was justice. For her father, for the lies, for every time she was called a burden, a mistake, a beggar. She wasn't stealing from Catherine. She was taking back what should have never been stolen in the first place. Catherine Graves always walked like she ruled every room, but now her steps had a different weight. Rushed, sharp, desperate. The second Alta Canyon froze. Everything began to unravel. Her next disbursement didn't go through. Then her bank flagged her for suspicious offshore activity. The advisor she trusted for years suddenly stopped returning calls. And the number on the audit letter, always busy or cold voicemail. Catherine tried not to panic, but the money wasn't moving, and that meant trouble. Elena watched from a distance, quiet, calm, unseen. She had created this storm, and now she was watching her mother drown in it. For the first time in her life, Catherine Graves wasn't in control, and it showed. Gavin was the first to feel the cracks. He'd just signed a lease for a high-end gym startup, and he needed the next installment from Catherine's fund to pay vendors. When the money didn't arrive, he called her in a fury. "I thought you said it was taken care of." "It was," Catherine snapped, her voice thin. "There's just a delay. I'm handling it." But she wasn't. Catherine started selling jewelry, then a vintage Rolex from her safe, then an art piece she once told guests was priceless. All gone, quietly and quickly, just to plug the growing cash flow holes. She blamed market complications, but everyone close to her knew something was off. One morning, as Catherine sipped bitter black coffee in her kitchen, eyes puffy from another sleepless night, she opened an unmarked envelope. Inside was a single note, typed in plain black ink. "Your daughter needed help once too." Her fingers trembled. Her breath caught in her throat. It was like the floor dropped beneath her. She hadn't thought of Elena in weeks. Not since slamming the door in her face. Not since that cold, dismissive laugh. Now, she couldn't stop thinking about her. She read the note again and again. The weight of it hung heavier than any frozen account or vanished transfer. Because deep down, Catherine knew this wasn't just a system error or some audit. Someone was doing this, and that someone wanted her to feel what Elena once did. Helpless, alone, begging for help, and being met with silence. Catherine wasn't stupid. Paranoid, yes, but never stupid. As her assets kept disappearing, as the banks froze one account after another, she sat alone in her Scottsdale living room, combing through a short list of people who had access. It wasn't a long list. Then it hit her. Elena, her own daughter, the same daughter she'd laughed at and shut out, the same daughter she assumed was too weak to ever push back. Catherine clenched her jaw, fury boiling under her skin. She called Elena the next morning. "Let's have lunch. I want to talk." Elena agreed, her voice calm, unreadable. They met at a high-end cafe Catherine used to frequent, though now she looked out of place. Disheveled, distracted, her confidence visibly cracked. As soon as they sat down, Catherine leaned in, eyes misty. "I know things haven't been easy between us, but someone's been interfering with my finances. It's serious, devastating, and I need to know if you've heard anything." Elena blinked slowly. "Are you accusing me?" "I'm not saying that," Catherine whispered, dabbing fake tears with her napkin. "I'm just desperate. and scared. "You're my daughter, Elena. I thought you could help me figure out what's going on. Help me salvage what's left." Elena tilted her head slightly, letting silence fill the space between them. Then, cool as glass, she replied, "Funny. That's the same tone you used when I begged for help." Catherine froze. Her mouth opened slightly, but no sound came out. "I came to you broken," Elena continued, "with nothing but a request for 2 months' rent. And you laughed at me. You said I was a beggar. So forgive me if I don't feel moved by your little performance now." Catherine's face hardened, the crocodile tears drying instantly. She stood, knocking over her chair in the process, and stormed out without a word. The entire cafe turned to look, but Elena didn't flinch. She sipped her drink and calmly placed her napkin on the table. That night, as Elena sat on her laptop, a ping alerted her to a new message. Encrypted, from Devon. Subject, finalized. Message, Alta Canyon Holdings. All assets transferred and terminated. Account closed. She leaned back in her chair, exhaled deeply, and smiled. It was over. Catherine Graves had finally tasted the kind of cold silence she once served without guilt. Catherine's fall wasn't loud, it was humiliating in its silence. The condo in the Scottsdale gated community went up for sale within weeks. Her BMW disappeared from the driveway. Rumors swirled in the neighborhood, but no one asked questions directly. They just watched. The real blow came with the letter from the IRS. An investigation had been quietly launched, thanks to Devon's carefully placed tip. Catherine's old shell companies and falsified consultant records were under scrutiny. Every lie she'd built her fortune on was now unraveling, one spreadsheet at a time. Gavin couldn't handle the pressure. His business deal fell apart after the funds his mother promised never arrived. He blamed Elena instantly, accusing her of jealousy, of sabotage. "You've always wanted to see us fail," he shouted during their last call. "Well, congrats. You did it." Then he moved to Texas without saying goodbye. Elena didn't argue. There was nothing to say. Gavin had always been their mother's golden child, sheltered from the truth by comfort and denial. Let him go, she thought. He never saw the real story anyway. For the first time in years, Elena felt still. She didn't dance with guilt. She didn't wrestle with shame. She had done what she had to do, not for revenge, but for clarity. Her mother had spent decades lying to protect wealth built on betrayal. Elena had only removed the mask. With a portion of the seized funds now legally rerouted through a trust, Elena made a quiet choice. She donated anonymously to 3 local shelters for women escaping abuse. No press, no credit, just quiet help for women who, like her, had once begged and been ignored. Every time she walked past one of those shelters, or saw a story of someone finding safety there, she smiled a little to herself, not out of pride, but peace. Catherine may have raised her without warmth, but Elena had finally learned how to give it, to herself and to others. And that, she thought, was the real inheritance. The letter came folded in 4, handwritten in shaky ink on yellowing stationery. No return address, just Tucson scrawled across the bottom corner. Catherine's words were clipped, almost unfamiliar. She said she was sick, that she didn't have much time left, that she wanted to see her daughter one last time. Elena almost threw it away, but something pulled her there. Not hope, not forgiveness, just the need to see the end of it all with her own eyes. Closure, maybe. The retirement home was nothing like the Scottsdale mansion. Peeling walls, a broken vending machine, and a nurse who barely glanced up as Elena signed in. The woman who once measured success by imported marble floors now lived in a shared room with a curtain for privacy and a roommate who coughed in her sleep. Catherine looked thinner. Her skin had lost its glow. Her hair, once perfectly styled, hung limp around her shoulders. But her eyes, those cold, calculating eyes, still watched Elena with that same familiar tension. "Elena," she rasped, "you came." "I did," Elena said quietly. Catherine tried to sit straighter, tried to find her old authority, but it crumbled like everything else she had built. I wanted to explain. What's left to explain? I was trying to protect the family. I didn't want to lose everything after your father died. I made choices to survive. You made choices to win," Elena said. "And when I needed help, you laughed. Not once did you think of survival then. You saw weakness and shut the door. I didn't know you were in that much pain." "No," Elena said, her voice steady. "You didn't care to know." Catherine's hands trembled. "I'm still your mother." Elena stood, her jaw tight. "You taught me to be strong, but you never thought I'd use it on you." Catherine's lips parted, like she wanted to say more, but no words came. Her eyes shimmered with tears, whether from regret or desperation. Elena couldn't tell, and she didn't want to anymore. She turned toward the door. Catherine called after her, "Elena, please." But Elena didn't look back. As she stepped into the Arizona sun, the door clicked shut behind her, soft and final. She didn't feel triumphant. She didn't feel broken. She just felt free. Elena unlocked the door to her new apartment. Small, modest, but warm, in a way no place she'd ever lived before had been. Sunlight poured through the windows, bouncing off the pale wood floors. It wasn't luxury. It wasn't power, but it was hers. Every piece of it earned. She set her keys down on the counter, the sound echoing gently through the quiet space. No voices yelling, no silence filled with tension, just peace. In the corner sat a small desk with a single drawer that locked. Inside it was the flash drive, the one marked Alta Master. She hadn't looked at it since the final transfer closed, not out of fear, but because she didn't need to anymore. The truth was already out. The empire had fallen. The lessons had been learned. She ran her fingers along the edge of the drawer before locking it again. Her new job in Denver was steady, not flashy, but honest. She'd joined a small firm specializing in compliance audits and corporate transparency. Funny how life worked. The very skills she learned from dismantling her mother's secrets had become the foundation of her new career. She had found something solid beneath all the chaos, a quiet strength. In the evenings, Elena sometimes walked the streets near her apartment, watching the city light up as the sun dipped below the mountains. She didn't crave revenge anymore. What she had now wasn't revenge. It was something deeper: control, choice, the peace. She stood by the window, mug in hand, staring out over the city she was starting to call home. Not a skyline built on lies or stolen money, but one shaped by people working, trying, growing. And she whispered to herself, a small smile tugging at her lips. Some lessons cost everything. Yours just happened to be in dollars. There was no satisfaction in her voice, no gloating, just truth. Elena had been raised in a world of cold marble and colder hearts. But now she lived in warmth, in light, and in her own name. Finally, what was hers was truly hers. Do you think Elena did the right thing by taking control and walking away from the woman who never truly loved her? Or should she have forgiven her mother in the end? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I'd really love to hear from you. And if stories like this speak to you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on the notification bell so you never miss one.